what kind of China will the United States face in 5 years or 10 years? Will it be a proud, prosperous nation? They're now trying to go from being a manufacturer to the world, primarily low and middle wage manufacturing. They're shedding those jobs. Those jobs are going to Vietnam, Cambodia, elsewhere. They're trying to move up the ladder, and they're trying to become an innovation nation by the year 2025. So this is an extraordinary undertaking. They're trying to force the pace of change so that they can create new jobs, to new high-quality, value-added jobs that will replace the jobs that are going off to Vietnam or Cambodia. They want to transform their economy, and the key to that is innovation. The key to that is coming up with ideas that can be sold. So I want to hear from each of you whether you agree with my formulation, but the issue really is not so much what state-owned enterprises do in space. They're sending people into space, building large supercomputers, high-powered, high-speed trains. There are some very impressive things happening technologically in the state sector, but I think that from an American perspective, what we're interested in is whether non-state players can innovate rather than just borrow. So far, they've largely borrowed Western models of Google and adapted them to the Chinese market, driven down the cost of cell phones, or done things that we would regard as sort of derivative, but not fundamentally breakthrough innovation. So that's the question: is whether the Chinese are capable of doing that and doing it on a global scale. I mean, this is a nation that created gunpowder and paper and many other technologies that swept the world. If they do that again, the American and every economy in the world will feel that. If they can't do that, then they could face difficulties in terms of social political stability if they can't create the jobs. And have I summed this up right? Have I set the stage right? Who of you you think that's a fair way to set it up? So let me turn first to you. So your book is a very ambitious and compelling look across the fields. Just tell us, what did you find? What did you find?
Yeah, I felt like, first of all, when we talk about China and innovation, I've been studying this for quite some time, since the early 2000s, and I felt like always we're like blind people feeling an elephant, right? So everybody get a piece of it, and then they start making conclusions. So in this book, what I really trying to do is finding more blind people, maybe not blind people, so finding more expert, and for each of them have in-depth look of a particular industry. And then we can put these experts in conversation, and me as editor, with others, to really go through each of the industry to understand its history, understand its evolution, understand the nature of innovation. We have one of our chapters author, Professor Rachel Liu here, and she is expert on high-speed rail. She did the high-speed rail study. So by putting them together, I think I started to really get a sense of what is China's potential and its problems for innovation. So I think your stage is said really right, that yes, China is at the stage that it's really, really important for China to move its economy from labor-driven to technology-driven. So that's a stage. But at the same time, I'm somewhat disagree with you in the sense of how you classify innovation. So for me, innovation, for me and perhaps my co-authors, that innovation is not necessarily a breakthrough. Innovation is collective and accumulated. So innovation often happens when there are a group of people who are working in related areas that each of them build up on top of each other, right? So it's a cumulative process. You cannot exactly jump huge stages. So from that, if we go with that definition, thinking about innovation as a cumulative, collective process, I think China certainly have done a lot in terms of moving into innovation.